Tonight, News 13 takes an independent look at water quality along Grand Strand beaches. Whether or not the water is safe became a big question for potential visitors earlier this spring after word of swimming advisory spread through social media. News 13's Brandon Herring took water samples to an independent lab and looked at long-term data to give you a better idea of what's in the water.
The beautiful beaches of the Grand Strand attract millions of visitors each year, but in early March, some began to question vacation plans. They wondered if too much harmful bacteria is in the water because of a post on MyrtleBeachSC.com, a website owned and operated by local writer David Hucks. The post mentioned a swimming advisory at the beach, and it became so alarming on social media, News 13 reported on it 3 times, including interviews with Hucks and tourism professionals.
We've had 1 million visitors in the last few days. It wasn't surprising at all. It wasn't surprising because this is very important.
It's generated a lot of concern for us. Is it safe to swim? Should I keep my reservation? Are we allowed to go in the water?
They were really concerned. I'm surprised that one source can have such an impact.
The website post centered on swimming advisory signs like this. They're based on water testing done by DHEC, South Carolina's Department of Health and Environmental Control. More on the signs in a moment. We wanted to do our own testing to see how much bacteria is in the water and if it matched up with results from DHEC.
This is sterile.
So the lab director for Florence's environmental wastewater treatment plant trained me on how to collect water samples, and he agreed to test our samples. I collected 3 samples from the ocean, and just for comparison, 1 sample from the intracoastal waterway and 1 sample from a community pool. The first ocean sample came from water right in front of Wither Swash in Myrtle Beach, where storm water drains to the ocean. An advisory sign there says bacteria levels could be high in this area, especially just after a rainfall. We tested a day after it rained, about 1.5 inches. We also took a sample several hundred feet down the beach from the Swash, just outside the advisory area. And our third ocean sample came from just south of Myrtle Beach State Park. We took those samples along with the swimming pool and waterway samples to the lab. Although this testing isn't scientifically certified, Lab Director Malcolm Cook put the samples through a process similar to the normal testing here.
Normally we test for E. coli and fecal coliform.
He tested for bacteria called Enterococcus. Simply put, it's a widely accepted indicator of water that could make you sick. And anything above a 104 measurement means you shouldn't swim in the water.
There was very few of the bacteria that was in that water when we looked and we experimented.
In this video, anything you see light up under the black light indicates bacteria. Just a trace in the water from the Swash area, nothing from the other 2 ocean samples or the pool. And this one is from the intracoastal waterway. It tested at 108. But because the waterway is a different type of water, the acceptable level there is slightly higher. DHEC also tested the ocean just a day before us and found similarly low levels of bacteria in the areas we sampled. It didn't seem to be an alarming amount of bacteria.
I'd have jumped in.
But our samples just indicate one moment in time. Coastal Carolina University and DHEC have long-term data from Grand Strand beaches. Those numbers are what prompted these advisory signs starting in 2007. The signs are most often at areas with drainage to the beach. They indicate that in the last 5 years, 10% of the samples taken in that particular spot had bacteria levels above the acceptable level.
They were merely a proactive effort to help educate the beach-going public of the potential that there could be some elevated levels of bacteria, especially following rainfall. The number of the long-term signs that we have posted have been coming down. I think that's good news for our coastline.
In the Grand Strand, DHEC tests 52 spots from Cherry Grove down to Pawleys Island, and this year 16 of those spots have signs advising you not to swim for 200 feet in each direction. 8 of those signs are in Myrtle Beach, and the other half are in Surfside Beach, Briarcliff Acres, and unincorporated beaches of Horry County. If an area without a long-term advisory sign tests above the 104 standard for 2 days in a row, DHEC will put out a temporary sign. That's happened twice in North Myrtle Beach and once in Horry County since this year's testing began May 1st. DHEC's long-term online figures show bacteria levels do often fluctuate, usually jumping in drainage areas after a rainfall.
It's like the stock market. It goes up and down. You know, so when do you pull your money? It's at its highest peak. So when you don't go swimming, when it's at its highest peak.
And you can find out if bacteria levels have peaked too high by checking out this map on DHEC's website. from May 1st through October 1st. If you zoom in to the beach areas, you can see where they tested. There are areas in green that show they tested just fine recently. And then if there were any orange spots, those would be the temporary advisories when they put out those signs. And then if you also zoom in, you can see that there are some yellow areas. Those are the places with those long-term advisory signs. So this really can be your best way to see what the water quality is from week to week. I'm Brandon Herring, News 13.
All right, thank you, Brandon. We'll have a link to DHEC's water quality map at WBTW.com, and we also plan to continue following this story to see what state and local leaders are doing to improve water quality and to let the public know when there are spikes in bacteria levels.